Justin Trudeau left Poland last hour, returning to Ottawa, wrapping up a trip through Eastern Europe, reaffirming Canada's support for Ukraine and NATO's defense of Europe.
In every democracy around the world, we are seeing a rising movements of either authoritarian populism or skepticism about democracy itself. And we all need to recommit ourselves to standing up, not just for Ukraine, but through standing up for Ukraine, to the very principles that make our countries strong and free.
Trudeau held a joint news conference with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, where he defended Canada's defense spending levels and contributions to NATO. Canada spends about 1.3% of GDP. That's below the NATO target of 2%. Poland is on course to increase its defense spending to about 8% of GDP. Tusk said he is confident NATO members would reach the spending commitments sooner or later, and that it is essential to meet the threat posed by Russia. We get more from the CBC's Evan Dyer in Warsaw.
The Trudeau government is making a bit of a full-court effort here to persuade its European allies that it is serious, first of all, about the defense of Ukraine, and secondly, about its wider commitment to NATO. Today, we saw one of the ministers who was traveling here in Eastern Europe depart for Paris, where he's taking part in a summit organized by Emmanuel Macron to talk about how other things Europe can do to help Ukraine. Already, of course, it's agreed to spend 50 billion euros to help Ukraine to win the war. We've seen Prime Minister Trudeau here in Warsaw continue his meetings, meeting both the President and Prime Minister of Poland. Two political rivals who really don't agree on anything in terms of Poland's domestic politics, but who are very much on the same page when it comes to resisting Russia. We didn't see any criticism here in Poland of Canada's defense spending, although the gulf between the two countries is big and potentially going to get bigger. Poland spends 4% already of its GDP on defense, and the defense minister recently said that it was willing to double that to 8% if the threats from Russia continue, or if Poland feels that there might be a risk of imminent invasion. So that's an awful lot more than Canada, but today Prime Minister Donald Tusk didn't want to criticize Canada. He said he wanted to be hospitable. He was much more willing actually to criticize some of his neighbors in Slovakia and Hungary, who are seen not only as laggards in supporting Ukraine, but also as wavering and potentially even being on the side of Vladimir Putin. So what Canada has done to address some of the concerns of its allies about its defense spending is to focus it very tightly on things those allies want, which in Europe means Operation Unifier, training Ukrainian troops, providing air patrol in the Black Sea and so on, and in terms of assuaging the United States, modernizing NORAD. And those efforts have been appreciated, has been remarked upon here in NATO quite a bit in Europe, but at the same time it has not solved the overarching issue of Canada's defense spending being well below the 2% mark, and also being the only major member of NATO that doesn't have a plan to get to 2%. And so we are continuing to see pressure on that front. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Warsaw.